This is Mac. I'm going to try and explain to you the producer surplus. So just looking at this model, I've pre-done it. Some of you know this is my whiteboard with Microsoft Office, and I'm not that skilled. I really need to use the pen and master it. So here is a very badly drawn supply and demand model. It could be anything. I don't know the market for olives, no particular reason. And what we have here is, see we're missing a line here, the price for olives. You know what, I'm going to edit that and redraw it. And that's the market price, the current growing rate, if you like, for olives. And Q is the amount that's being sold. Okay, so I kind of started this video earlier and my microphone wasn't working. So just to explain what's going on here, the producer surplus, a lot of people commonly think, oh, it's what's below, it's a triangle below the price. Often it is, but there's like one particular exception where it's not quite like that, and there's one or two others where it's not a triangle. So please don't just think, I'll remember it as the triangle under the price. What I want you to think is go back to the definition of the producer surplus. So the definition of the producer surplus is the difference between what producers are willing to accept, all right, and that's the bottom of the supply curve here. So this is the lowest price that theoretically they would accept to sell this good, and the price they actually receive. So the difference between the price that they're willing to accept and the price that they are actually going to receive. Another way of thinking it is it's the difference between the price they receive in the market and the marginal cost of producing their product. This is taking you back, but remember that supply equals marginal cost. So for each individual firm, they should at least be receiving the marginal cost of the good that they're selling. So for this, this is the market supply, right, which is made up of many different producers. Say like this point here, or this point here, but let's go here. This point here represents the most efficient producer in this market for olives, and they're able to produce, say, 2 olives, 1 olive, at a really, really, really low price because that's their marginal cost. However, they receive this. They are ecstatic, wouldn't you be? That's what it's like literally costing you to make that 1 olive, and that's what you're receiving. So you're a very happy person. However, as we go up the supply curve, we can see that true to form, the marginal cost rises as more is produced, and that's true, diminishing returns. But what it also means is that there are other producers in the market that are not as efficient as this one, and so their marginal cost of producing, say, 10 olives, 20 olives, 30 olives, etc., is higher, right up to this last person who probably the marginal cost exactly equals the price. So for them, they get no surplus. They get exactly the price that they were willing to receive. However, for everyone else, they receive what's called marginal profit, or we often refer to it as surplus. So for each one of these little points along the supply curves, it represents a different level of, say, costs for individual growers of olives in this case, or firms, and it's showing the idea that each one of them has like a lower price that they were willing to accept, but they end up getting the market price. And so the difference between, say, the marginal cost of producing the unit that they are selling and the price they received is known as marginal profit. You don't need to stress about that right now. It's maybe something that will come to you in later weeks as we cover this more, but it's the idea that the surplus is the difference between the price you're willing to accept and what you would have received if you were asked, like, come on, I've got, your 1 olive, what would you actually take for it? Quite a lot less, in fact. And so every one of these people here gets a surplus up to this last person here who just gets exactly the price they received. So if you take this difference, the difference between what they're willing to accept and what they actually receive, and then you times it by how many units they sell, that becomes the total producer surplus in the market. Okay, so P times Q is the revenue. This bit here from underneath the supply curve all the way up to this point here, equilibrium, is, say, P times Q is revenue, right? And from here to the equilibrium point is, say, the cost, whereas up here is the profit. Okay, so there we go, producer surplus. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it was helpful. Feel free to ask me questions.